Recording. Here we go. So good afternoon, Paul Gunson. Is that correct? Gunson hasn't got a T in it, has it?
No, just Gunson. That's
Gunson.
fine. How are you, Karen? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm not bad at all. Just saying it's busy with all this stuff going on in the world that we're trying to bring to people's awareness, and we try and fit it in a life that's quite busy anyway. But it's so important that we pause to do these chats, I think, for me on this channel. So for anybody watching, hello, Karen Dodd from Wise Women Weekdays, and today I'm joined for a chat with Paul Gunson, who has a story to tell. So yeah, welcome. And you're good. You're in a good place at the moment, or not?
Difficult. I mean, I shared some information with you last week when we spoke. No, my story is quite horrendous by far. I'll give you a little bit of an intro, so if any listeners come on, they'll know who I am. I mean, I'm a 64-year-old. I know I don't look it, but never mind. Some people think I'm older, but anyway. So really, my story, if you like, is no different than anybody else. I think everybody has their own story, and it's their story, and that's what makes these conversations so interesting. Because I think if you go back to the sort of indigenous peoples of the world before the written word, it was always about stories. It was always passed down generation after generation, etc., etc. Then somebody came up with the concept of writing things down, and it gets lost in translation, as they say. So for me, my journey, and as you know, it's a biblical study journey. I became very much aware that there was just something missing. What's going on with this narrative? So, because a long story short, at 25, I kind of found God, for want of an expression. And then I very quickly became aware of something that wasn't really spoken of in your typical church meeting, Sunday school type of thing. And that was, what was potentially going to happen, towards the end, what they call the end of days, end time prophecy, whatever kind of, expression people relate to. But I became fascinated by it, Karen, bloody hell, I dived into that like you wouldn't believe it. And I was thinking, why aren't our church leaders and our ministers talking about this stuff? What? It's all about, lovey-dovey and, be nice and, be obedient and all that sort of thing. And I'll be honest with you, I struggled with it. I really did struggle with it. I accepted it and I kind of went along with the game. But deep down, I kept thinking, there's something missing. We're not being told something. And anyway, again, I came across things such as, seek and you shall find, knock on the door shall be opened. You can know the mysteries of God and all of this. And they were the kind of things that I resonated with. But at the same time, what was being preached on a Sunday, I was bored stiff, if I'm honest. And even my bishop today, he said to me, Paul, when I look at you over the, out of the congregation, he said, you look like you could just fall asleep. And I'd say, I'm bored. I said, you're not telling me nothing I couldn't have learned in day one. I want to know about all this stuff that you don't talk, we don't talk. Anyway, so my journey really was, I came across a verse in Genesis 6:4, which says, and in those days there were giants upon the earth. Well, that grabbed me like, the bull by the horn. And then I started to research that and, the Watchers, the fallen angels, the Book of Enoch. Why was the Book of Enoch taken out of Scripture? And then I really delved into that. Not just, I'm not preaching, this is not about preaching religion and saying, oh, you must believe in God. This was just that I was following the narrative that wasn't being spoken. And I thought, why are all these references to books that aren't there? Well, where are these books? So I'd go and say, anyway, cut a long story short, I obviously researched and found those books. And it's a different narrative. It's a totally different story from the one that religion typically preaches.
So can I ask, Paul, going back a bit, the
Yeah,
backstory. So are we talking? Obviously, we're talking about the Bible and maybe some other
yeah,
religious scriptures, and we're talking about God and
yeah.
Christianity, which is from where the Bible's all about. So, are we chatting today about that basically, or is it something outside religion
No,
as
I
well?
just wanted to, yeah, no, I wanted to give you the background of that because in my studies of that, I became very much aware that from a religious point of view, a scriptural point of view, we weren't being told the truth.
Right.
So I started then to ask the question, well, hold on, if the church isn't telling us the truth, well what else is who else isn't telling the
Yeah.
truth? So then
So,
that made, yeah.
can I therefore ask you what your backstory is? Why were you going to church? Are you from a religious background? What led you
Not
to
at the,
that
yeah,
path? Why did you go to church?
well, at the time, I growing up as a teenager, I mean, you may remember. Do you remember Little House on the Prairie? And
I used to love it. I used to love it.
yeah, well,
Ideal
I could
lifestyle.
never,
Yeah.
yeah, I could never watch that program without crying, and I'm not
Yeah.
ashamed as a man to say that because it
Yeah. The
really
perfect
touched
family.
it really touched me, and it was about the family.
Yeah.
It was what
And
makes this
I
family.
must just say, I did have a crush on Papa. I can't remember his name now. He's since died. But the dad, he was the ideal man to
Michael
me.
Langdon,
That's it. Yeah.
Michael Langdon,
Mike
yeah.
Landon. Yeah.
But it was what was pulling at my heartstrings, Karen, was this concept of family.
Yeah.
And anyway, cut a long story short, I felt that there were three questions that could never be answered for me, and those are where did we come from, why are we here, and what happens after it? When we die, what happens? So whenever we went to a family wedding, christening, funeral, I'd always target the minister and I'd say, "Listen, I've got some questions. Can you try and help me?" And you know what, Karen? They could never answer the question because they were only theologians. They were only people who studied a particular narrative, and they taught that narrative, and that was it. So whatever they didn't learn, they didn't teach. So it was never really about opinion. It was just, well, the book says this, and we do this, and we do that, and we don't do this. But that never answered my question. So anyway, cut a long story short, with wanting to understand this concept of family, I met my wife at the age of 18. We got together, got married at 21. She had a son to a previous marriage. I adopted him. Then we had our daughter. So around about 22, 23, 24, I kind of had what I was searching for, if you like, but didn't have the answers to those three questions. So anyway, lo and behold, the usual story, knock, knock on the door. And there were two Mormon missionaries. And being polite, being nice, being courteous, I invited them in, offered them coffee. They said, "Oh, we don't drink tea or coffee," and that intrigued me. Anyway, again, I want to kind of bypass all that, but basically, I said, "Well, okay, so you're ministers of religion, young boys, 18, 19, 20 years of age," and I thought, God, what can these people know about God? Anyway, I asked them those three questions, and they gave me answers like it was like boom, 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 straight off the bat, and I went, "Wow." I can go to a 64-year-old minister who's been preaching for 45 years and he can't answer those questions. So that got me interested. Anyway, cut a long story short, again, I got baptized, became a member of the church, and then I went on this 40-year journey.
Yeah.
So, but what really still intrigued me, looking at, this movement, sovereignty, whatever, that was never ever out in that wasn't out there. It really, back in, I mean, I'm talking 85 now, 90s, 2000s. That wasn't really, that movement was not out there. And then all of a sudden, I started following a guy called Michael Tellinger because I was very much interested in gold and silver and currency in generally, because I started to see that was a narrative that didn't sound right. There seemed to be something going on there. So I came across, not, I'm going to say Michael Tillinger, we'll come to Michael Tillinger in a bit, but Mike Maloney, Hidden Secrets of
Okay.
Money. So now I'm going back 2012, maybe 2014, and I started to research on him, and all made sense. Currency was a concept. we were being tricked even in that, because as of 1933, the whole world became bankrupt. So there was no longer any physical money or gold or silver
Gold or
being
tangible.
used. It
Yeah.
was this banknote, this promissory
Yeah.
note piece of paper. And then that took me on another rabbit hole, because I thought, well, hold on, if that's wrong, what else is wrong? We've been sold this idea of debt and credit. And then I kind of went down that rabbit hole, and I'm still down that rabbit hole, by the way. Some of these rabbit holes you get in and you just don't get out.
Okay, you're stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, because it just goes, well, the thing is, it goes that deep and it branches off that many different
Yeah. Or
directions.
you're in the rabbit warren then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think you kind of got an answer, you think, oh, flipping heck, well, hold on, I've
Yeah.
got to where I've got that answer, but hold on, there's 3 more tunnels here. Which way do we go now? So that took me down the crypto route, because at that time, that was the narrative. The crypto was coming around, and although it's been around since 2008, it kind of didn't get on the scene until about 2012. So I went down that rabbit hole, got involved in that, and that made sense to me, because it was we the people, for the people, of the people. And then that led me to the American Constitution. And then I read that, and that said, if ever this great, and I'll quote, Jefferson now, Thomas Jefferson, in the signing of the Declaration of Independence, he actually stated in the Declaration that if ever this great nation allows its people to allow government to first issue currency by inflation and by deflation, your children will wake up on the streets of these great cities. Now, he said that 1776, so that wasn't new information, was it? But to the world in general, nobody was really following that narrative. So that then led me down the path of, well, hold on. So we're not talking the right information in religion. Now found out that the currency is wrong. And now found out something else and something else and something else. Right, where's all this leading to? So I went on the business circuit back in around about 2017, and I was talking crypto, gold, and silver as being, the solution to the problem, given that this fiat currency was all fake and it was all a construct and it was all led to deceive us, to keep us in poverty. Because what people don't realize, Karen, is when you exchange a dollar bill, a pound note, a yen, whatever the currency, you're never ever paying off the debt. You're just circulating the debt.
Yeah.
And then you go and get another payment, and then you go and get another payment, and then you just buy more money, you buy more credit, you go and get another loan. Yeah. All of this was designed to entrap us into this, this currency situation. You and I were getting poorer because we had to keep going borrowing more money just to live. And those who were issuing the currency, they were getting richer and richer, hence the divide between the wealthy and the poor. And then I thought, hold on, this can't be right. This is wrong. So then I went down the political route of, well, who are these elites? And, who are these people? The bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the, BlackRock, and we could even go down the Illuminati and all that kind of Luciferian, the Freemasons. Well, they were all the top of the pyramid. They were all the ones who were making us stay at the bottom, thinking of a pyramid. We're at the bottom. Can we ever get to the top? No. You might get a little way up. You might get 1 or 2 little rungs on the ladder, as they say. But from getting into that elite group, not a chance. They wouldn't let you. So that then said, well, hold on. I now found that that's wrong. So where does that leave little old me and little old Karen? Well, basically, it leaves us at the bottom of the pile and we're screwed. Because we can't change it, or you would think. And then that kind of led me on to people who were looking at this whole common law, particularly, again, around about 2010, I started to get involved in that. And people who were saying, well, hold on, we are the people, so therefore we should have some say and some vote and some some control and blah, blah, blah. And we should be dictating these governments. We employ the governments, not them. But they've reversed the role on us, haven't they? Think of recently the electoral roll. What have they got us do? Well, they've reduced us to a letter X. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Karen, but I've got a feeling you're quite educated. And they've reduced you to an X. Well, an X means, and I don't take this the wrong way, I'm not here to insult anybody, but what an X means is you are an imbecile. You are stupid. You can't even write your own name. And you happily go to an electoral booth and you put an X. What that says to them, I'm stupid. Will you please look after me as a child, as a mother or father would look after a child? That's what that means. So even that now becomes a problem, because now the electoral roll is hold on, my vote doesn't count. It's predetermined, it's prefixed, it's all, again, a construct just to make it look like, oh, well, I voted for Labour. Well, I voted for,
It's a trick, Paul. And I think with the X, if I can just interject here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's a valid point. But in a lot of the dogma or the legal paperwork that is presented to us, and I can't think anything at the top of my head, but let's say if you are going for a mortgage, or if you're signing up for something, you're setting up a contract, quite often they will say, sign here by the X. So the X isn't just, just a marker. It's very symbolic to say that we are an imbecile, and we are stupid. We don't know what's going on. It is giving away our power for somebody else to.
Absolutely, but what it also does, because again, you kind of brought up another rabbit hole, which is contract law. Yeah. Because in contract law, in order for a contract to be valid, there must be a coming together of the minds. We must be in agreement. I must be able to find a solution. You must present a solution. There must be due consideration. So, i.e., if I use the mortgage as the example, so if I want to purchase I want to take a mortgage out to buy a house, then what collateral have you got? Because there must be an equal collateral. Think of scales. There has to be a balance. Well, guess what? And I'm sure you know the answer to this. They don't sign it. So if they don't sign it, then there's no contract. So that brought about the whole rabbit hole then of, are mortgages legal or not legal? Well, I've got news for you. As far as they're concerned, they're legal, because you declared yourself an imbecile and you signed. You never challenged. You didn't question. You didn't say, well, aren't you signing this? Well, what are you putting up for collateral? Because what they actually did, and again, I've listening to Richard's shows, there are a lot of people out there who kind of know this stuff now anyway. But what you're actually doing, your signature creates a special purpose vehicle. And what they do, and let's use the figure of 100,000 just to keep the maths simple. My maths teacher said to me, I said to her once, what's this mental arithmetic back? She said, well, actually, you're quite mental, but your arithmetic needs a bit of work. So the issue being, I like to keep it simple, just because I keep remembering that maths teacher. And the issue is this: you sign to say, well, I want to loan 100,000 so that I can buy the lovely house that I drove past down, I want that house type of thing. Well, guess what? Your signature creates that money. They don't loan you anything. They create a special purpose vehicle. They credit their accounts via the solicitor, because the solicitor actually endorses it. They do a conveyancing on the property to make sure there's nobody else got a charge on it. And then they say, yeah, Karen's all good to go in that little cottage she wants down the road. Yeah, we'll happily credit you 100,000. Well, where did that money come from? I'm asking you the question, where did it come from? Because banks don't have any money, because there is no money.
Yeah, but that's right. It's a debt society in which we live, isn't it? There is no money. You've said it.
So
You know,
where did that?
they
So
say money doesn't grow on trees, but basically, well, it did. Now it comes from pigs, I think, doesn't it? But there is no money. Yeah. Hmm.
so anyway, so again, that kind of put me on another rabbit hole then, because that led me into this thing called a promissory note. Because if they can create money, well, then doesn't that mean that we can? And in fact, did we not create it by being the creator,
Hmm.
by signing and making it a special purpose vehicle? So this is where the whole concept of promissory notes comes in, because if my signature endorses a loan that can be credited to me back and then they charge me interest for, well, then can I not use the same principle in reverse? Can I not discharge that debt using the same purpose, i.e., sign a promissory note, issue it to the credit so-called creditor, although actually we were the creditor, and say, well, thank you very much. I like that game that you played on me, but I've had enough. Don't want to play the game anymore. Here's a promissory note, and that's really where my journey started, and that was 2017,
Hmm.
because lo and behold, having spent the best part of the year, Karen, researching, studying this, because as I say, this movement was not really there or thereabouts at that point. So I went deep into promissory notes, came across Michael Tillinger, who we previously spoke about, and I think, wow, bingo, there's the answer to that. So I followed
Hang on, Paul. Michael Tellinger at this time, or the other Michael McTimoney, I think you said another name.
Michael Tellinger, i.e., the South African guy who
Oh
was
yeah, we are
really.
talking about. That's when. Okay, because you referred to a different Michael previously, so now we're
Oh,
talking
sorry,
about.
Michael Maloney. That's Hidden Secrets of Money.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So now we are going on to Michael Tellinger. Okay,
Yeah.
of the Ubuntu movement. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, then he having got excuse me, having being summoned to court in relation to his property, lost the case. His property farm down in South Africa was obviously taken from him and repossessed, as we use the word today. And then when he came away, the judge kind of said, well, actually, you owe us, 250,000, whatever it was, rand at the time, 250,000 rand. And then his solicitor turns around to him and say, oh, don't worry about that. You can pay it off with the promissory note. And he went, what? He said, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning? You telling me I've just spent 5 or 6 weeks in court fighting for my property and I could have paid the bloody debt off with a promissory note? Are you serious? Which kind of takes you then into what's going on in the courts, because it's a bar society. The judge, the prosecution, the defendant, attorneys and solicitors and barristers, they're part of the bar guild. So that's another rabbit hole, because they're all in cahoots. Both the barristers, prosecution and defendant barristers, they cannot argue against the judge. They can
Yeah.
put forward, they can put forward your case, they can discuss your concerns, but at the end of the day, the judge rules, and they just sit back in silence. And yeah, sorry, you're guilty. Well, the thing is, Karen, you were guilty the minute you walked into the court, and that's kind of where the remedy lies that I've come
Yeah.
across, because the minute you go into court, the minute you step across the bar, the minute you acknowledge your name, you're guilty. They did like a little bit like the cross. You're a child. You're stupid. You're an imbecile. Well, the same thing applies to court. They treat you as if you're stupid. You haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about, and the fact that you're here, you're guilty.
Yeah.
Because
But it's a
they're
different
only.
language in court, isn't it? It's a different.
Yeah,
You're in their jurisdiction, and we don't understand the legalese, and we're going along
not at all. Not
naively,
at all.
innocently. Yeah.
Yeah. So that then takes you into their rules and their game and
Yeah.
their courts,
Jurisdiction.
is the remedy in courts? Well, there are people out there who suggest that there is. I dispute that, because the minute you go in and you start waving this, birth certificate, and we'll talk to that in a sec, but some people will go in and say, I'm not the straw man, I'm the living man or woman, and blah blah blah, and you're corrupt and you're this, and guess what? You're off to jail for contempt of court. Because the minute you start accusing the judge or anybody else of fraud or, you're stupid, you've just given him the ammunition to lock you up. If you go with clean hands and honor, and you know your stuff, and you ask the right questions, well, then the judge is obligated to listen to your story. I had a recent case concerning my car finance, and I went in with I'm not the strong man. and basically, I think I was about 2 minutes from getting this sorted out. But he turned around to me and said, look, I'm here to listen. And he was very nice. We might paint these people with a bad portrait, but at the end of the day, this district judge, he was nice. And he said, look, you've got two options. You're either Mr. Paul Gunson, and I can talk to you and listen to you, or if you go down this, I'm not the straw man and waving pieces of paper at me, I'm not here to listen to it. And here's the thing, Karen, they don't have to listen to it. That's why you very rarely, if any time, win in a court case. So anyway, eventually, I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll meet you halfway, Judge. I said, I'll tell you my story before I acknowledge who I am. Is that fair? He said, okay, I'll work with that, he said. So I told him my story. I told him about my daughter having a terminal illness. I told about me having to look after 4 kids. I bought the car so I can take it backwards and forwards to hospital appointments, treatment. And all the time he was going, okay, yeah, okay. I can see it. And then what he basically did, he suspended the case for 8 months because the creditor on the car was chasing for the car. I said, well, look, I can, I'm struggling financially. I can afford to pay 170. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. You're going to pay £100 a month for the next period of time until we reconvene. So I came out of there thinking, well, that was a nice little win, in all fairness. It could have been that I was walking out, giving the car keys back and, wouldn't have a car. So I considered that a little bit of a win, a little bit of a loss, kind of mixed up in the middle. But the issue was, that was the first time I'd ever stood in a court, and that was earlier on this year. And I thought, well, hold on, everyone's saying these guys are bad, and it's not. Because again, what people don't realize, you consented to them being your judges. And this goes back biblically now, because when the time of freedom, I think of Moses bringing the Israelites out of Egypt and all that time, we were with God. God was providing manna, God was providing the water, God was giving us the law, God was this, God was that, God was the other. And then for some bloody stupid reason, the people said, hey, hold on. No, we don't want you to do this. Can't you give us a judge, or can't you give us a king, a monarch? Can't somebody else just speak on our behalf and speak to us? So we sold our birthright. We sold our freedom to be governed. So if you want to know where it all went wrong, that's where it went wrong. Because ever from then, God said, okay, fine, get on with it. I've showed you what I can do. If you think you can do better, have a go. And then if you think of the whole history, then the wars, the use of so-called religion, people being slaughtered and massacred, and that whole narrative, it gets bloody ugly. And then who did they go and blame? They go and blame God. It's not his fault. We opted out. We talk about that today, don't we? If you don't opt out, you opt in. Well,
did we actually opt out though, or was that decision, made on our behalf? Was there that moment when we all said, okay, I don't believe in God, we want a monarch, we want a president, we want a prime minister?
Yeah, we opted out. We opted out of the God. We opted out, said, no, we don't want religion, we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want you telling us what to do, we don't want the commandments. Okay, they all look nice, and no harm, and careful. No, that doesn't allow for war, does it? So we actually opted out. We not only opted out of having God with us, we opted out of having sovereignty, having our own power, having the right to govern ourselves, the right to progress, the right to prosperity. You know, for instance, tax didn't come into America until 1913. There was no tax before 1913. Well, where did tax come from? From governments. Well, where did governments come from? We elected them. See what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we have given our rights to be governed to them.
Yeah.
And this is where we get all the X stuff, and we get this ability to no longer govern what we do, what we say, how we say it. Yeah. But we think by putting an X on them all that they representing us. Well, they're not representing us, they're representing the bloody selves. I've never seen a poor politician, have you? Or you know, they do quite well at what they're doing. Very rarely, you know, honor their promises at election. And we've just seen recently what's happened. Soon as they get elected, they do a complete U-turn. Do we ever learn from that? No, because we do the same thing in the next 4 years. Right. And then we put the other group in, and then they don't deliver, then we put the other group back in, and it's a game of tennis for the rest of your life in politics. So that then really kind of led me to think, well, hold on. I came in here to try and find, was there any problem? What I've actually found out is the whole bloody thing's a problem. So this kind of sovereignty movement kind of bringing us right forward now probably really started to kick off around about 2020. And we all know what happened then. People went, hold on, this can't be right. Never, ever, ever in the history of the world has something been able to shut the world down. And here we have something that was never proven, was never tested, was never really to be seen to be a cure, now impacted on the entire world at once. Now, I don't want to go down that route because I don't want your channel to get shut down. But that really, I think, was the catalyst for the woke movement, because I think that was the last straw where people said, hold on, I'm not having this. But here's the problem. 85% of the population happily lined up for that particular medical procedure. So what does that tell you? Okay. So this other 15%, which I believe we're probably part of, we said no to that. We said, no, not having that, not playing that game. And then I think that really started to wake people up. They started to see the other cracks in the wall, the currency, the politics, you know, all the rabbit holes, and everybody started saying, well, actually, I've just found a solution. I think if we do this, we can get remedy. I think if we do that, we can get remedy. And to be fair, I absolutely love what Richard is doing. When I met up with him in Wales a couple of weeks back, you know, I said to him, thanks very much, Richard, for putting your head on the block. Saves me having to do it. Yeah, because his channel, while not making any kind of deliberate, you know, attack on anybody, he's using it as a free speech platform, allowing people to come in and share without, you know, saying yay or nay to either one or the other, whatever. What that's allowing now is this spread of the word, if you like, because my concern, Karen, and I'm sure you may share this, is while everybody's kind of got their own little group, and I mean, I have a group, a couple hundred people following what I'm doing, and somebody else has got some, and somebody else has got some, and so my argument is this: if you think of this as a puzzle, everybody's got a piece of the puzzle. But unless you've seen the big, you remember that expression, the big picture, you don't know the bigger picture. Well, the bigger picture is we've all got these little pieces of the puzzle, but the problem is we don't know what the picture is. So if you think of, well, hold on, I'm using your camera now. You know, you've got your water bottle, you've got your rose mug, you've got your planter, you've got your windows, you've got your shed at the back. You know, if we've all got just a little tiny piece of that, unless we've ever seen the big picture, how the hell did we get that to work? because it'll take you 10 times longer to ever get that picture together than once you've seen it. Because I
Yeah.
would know the first piece I would be looking for would be your flower mug, because I know that goes in the bottom right hand corner. I can see you've
Yeah.
got something that looks like a tree. I can see your face, so I know, somewhere there's an eye and a nose and a lip, and your general hair and your body. So I kind of know where it is. But this sovereignty movement, nobody really has seen the big picture. And I'm being honest now, and this is what I want to bring to the talk next week, because I believe, having spent 40 years looking at the whole thing, I haven't focused on any one area other than, which is really where I wanted this to get to, was the biggest thing that I found was such it's so in your face and obvious that people think, oh, it can't be that easy. And that is your birth certificate. What is that all about? Your birth certificate was a document that your mum, and I'm going to use you as the example, your mum signed you away at birth to the state, probably under duress, probably in agony, and probably couldn't remember those 2 minutes of pleasure with your dad. She was probably cursing into hell, if the honest truth was out there, right? But under that duress, she was signing she was making signature to documents, and she effectively, and more so your dad would have, or the father, whatever, he became the informant on you. He actually snitched on you. Well, actually, her name is blah blah blah, and of the family, blah blah blah. So you would have been Karen, your given name of. I mean, I'm assuming Dodd might be your married name, but let's say, for instance, it's your maiden name of the family Dodd, and then that document went off to registration, and you now became a citizen, what for want of a word, of the state. So actually, the crown own you. But what they did then is they took that document and they turned that into a bond. And they went to the Bank of International Settlement in Basel, Switzerland, and they said, we have this birth certificate for Karen Dodd, endorsed. We want that to be collateralized. And there's some debate as to how much, but the figure seems to be around about 650,000. So your birth certificate was traded on the stock market from the day you were born to now, and still is, by the way. I managed to again, through research and whatnot, I actually found that my birth certificate was being traded for £300 million. And that's just one. There's likely 100 more birth certificates that have been copied and photocopied and everything else. So the issue being, I went down that rabbit hole then and said, hold on, if there is a bond and there is a trust, how do we get access to it? And that's not an easy challenge. I've been working on that now for the last, although I've been on it for 10 years, probably the last February we really started to home in on what the process was to access that trust, because it's there and it's valuable. But nobody out there, to my knowledge, is really going for that, probably because it's complicated.
Mm.
And that there are easier pickings to actually monetize. So a lot of the people who come on Richard's shows have all got these little remedies, do this, do that, and you don't pay the bill and don't do this, and all of that. And yeah, they work. I've no question. I know promissory notes work because I paid off my mortgage. I paid off a loan back in 2017. I did the same this year. I managed to pay my gas bill, my lecky bill, and I had a small loan that I managed to pay off with a promissory note. But they've got wise to promissory notes now. So we've had to, and I know there are people on Richard's show that have said, well, this system, use this system, do this, do that, put a £5 note, put a piece of silver, all of that stuff. And yeah, I believe that a lot of that could potentially work quite well. But to my knowledge, no one's ever really talked to the Cese Trust. They know it's
Can
there.
I ask a little bit more about the Cese Trust? So, because I've heard people talk about it several times, and I get the concept. I understand that they use a birth certificate and they put that on their stock exchange, and off it goes into the business world. But how does that work? How does one piece of paper, one birth certificate, become worth so much money? How is it being traded? On our
Because
energy, on what we do?
it's traded purely on the fact. Do you remember the saying, "You're worth your weight in gold"?
Mm-hmm.
Well, where did that
Yeah.
come from?
This, what you're talking about?
No, it came from the Bible. Whenever a child was born, the king or the monarch or whatever was president, they had a fiduciary responsibility to give you your personal weight in gold. Now, that would have been good for me because I was a big baby. I was a 10-pounder. Okay. So can you imagine my mum walking away out of the maternity ward with a 10-pound bar of gold? That would have done you very nicely, thank you. Yeah. But the issue is that was law. That was a legitimate requirement of the monarch or whoever. But what they realized, well, hold on, we haven't got that much bloody gold. We've got to find a better system than this, or one that doesn't leave us out of pocket. In fact, if anything, makes pocket. So what did they do? They created the birth registration. And what they said was, we will provide you, and this is the trick, and this is where it switches now, we will provide you with goods and services and privileges. Yeah?
Yeah.
Throughout your life, in exchange for your birth certificate registration. So we were tricked, we were conned, yeah? But here's the thing, they knew what they were doing, but they didn't tell us. So what happens, this piece of bloody paper, now, if that's the problem, well, guess what? It has to be the solution, does it not? Because there has to be a balance. This thing about, you've got to balance the books. Well, right now, what we've got, Karen, as I'm sure you'll be aware, we've got this scale that's doing this. And what's weighing it down is the national debt.
Yeah.
So where's the imbalance? Why is there an imbalance? Well, okay, how do we balance it? Well, guess what? The balance of the debt is the discharge of the debt. Because at the moment, all we're doing is more and more debt, no discharge. So all we've got to do to balance the books is be able to what? Discharge. And then we get to an equilibrium. Now, here's the formula. Are you any good at maths? Remember, I'm not good at maths.
Oh, it depends. It depends on what the question is.
Put this in your post and let's see if anyone can come up with the answer.
Okay.
Right. The current national debt is $197 trillion global. The solution is that there is 167 metric tons of gold. Divide that by the number of ounces, divide it by the national debt, and you come up with a number. Now, I've never made any attempt because my calculators just don't do those numbers. But if you could, this is the solution, or one or two. So what would happen? The national debt would be discharged against the price of gold, raising up to balance the books. And then, with the debt gone, balanced, you being a daughter of God and me being the son of God, we were promised in a will from God that you are the inheritors of the earth. You've heard the expression, you're the salt of the earth and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're entitled to 1/8 billionth of the whole wealth of the world. So if the books were balanced by that calculation, then everybody could be given 1 ounce of gold, and then we could reset and start again. Because the likely value of that one ounce of gold will probably be somewhere in the 10s to 20 millions per person. probably
And
more.
it's not going to happen though, is it either? Because who's going to be dishing that out to us?
Well, there's the issue. All I said was that was one of the solutions.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether you're familiar with, you may have heard of the Nasera. You know, there's a
Yeah.
movement out there
Nasara, yes, yes,
yeah,
I have heard of
that's
that. Yeah.
that's been around for 20 odd years. And I believe that that is where, if that equation was ever to happen, it would likely come from there. We know a former president of the United States potentially could be involved in that. Again, not mentioning names. But the issue is, do I believe that to be true? I kind of want it to be true, if I'm honest. But is it true? Well, we'll just have to see. But there is a remedy. And the remedy is, remember what the problem was? The
Yeah.
problem was always the birth certificate, the bond. Well, if it exists and they're profiting from it, how do we profit from it? And here's where the Bible does really play its part. Now, you notice I've talked mostly without mentioning the Bible.
Yeah.
But here's the remedy. The remedy is, until you know, I'm going to use you as the example, don't shoot the messenger. Do you, Karen Dodd, really honestly know who you are?
I'd like to think so.
Well, for the benefit of your audience, who and what do you believe yourself to be?
A living woman,
Okay.
a human being,
Yes.
a spiritual entity that is here to have a life as Karen Dodd, an experience. So I think for me that's major. I think we're all here as, you know, coming to sort of visit this planet, as having to learn the lessons, because we're part of something much bigger, a higher consciousness. So that's what I believe. And I think none of all this really matters at the end of the day, because we are just here on a journey to live, to learn, to be kind, to be good to each other. And then, you know, once we've served our purpose, whatever that is, off we go. And if we haven't served it the way we should have, then we come back and do it again. I mean, that's kind of what I think in a nutshell. Does that make sense?
I'll tell you what, I'd swear you've been watching over my notes.
Sorry.
The only thing I would say I don't share a view on is, I don't believe we get a reincarnated state.
Come back. No, because in
I
the Bible
believe
it says yes, yes,
it's a one ticket thing. But here's the thing: you hit on a few things that are biblical. You know, you said that you were spirit. Well, you know, the Bible teaches that we were first created in spirit. We came to earth
yeah,
by whatever means. I'm not going into that. That's another talk. But we were given the opportunity to have free will, to choose what
yeah,
path we chose. As I say, do the nice thing, you know, don't hurt anybody, don't do any harm, all of them good words. Live your life, do the best that you can. But here's the thing. God provided you with everything that you needed.
yeah.
He gave you all the fruits of the flowers, he gave you all the herbs, he gave you all the medicines, all natural. And what happened? Well, Big Pharma kicks in and says, no, you're not doing that, because we can't make any money from that. You know, they've messed about with the seasons. The reason why we had the 4 seasons, you know, winter, summer, spring, and autumn, was because the body needed to be able to adjust to the seasons to keep it in balance. So, I'll give you, for instance, a banana, for want of an example. If all you ever ate was bananas, well, you would die, because you would be overloaded with potassium.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not good that we can access bananas, because I had a period of about 3 or 4 months where that's all my youngest granddaughter would eat. Now, I had a responsibility to say, well done, no, because you're eating too many. She would have just ate bananas and nothing else at one point.
Yeah, out of balance. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, the biblical narrative on health always was in the season thereof. So if the apples didn't grow in the winter, well, then you ate something that did grow in the winter. Now that's even been taken away, because now we can import any food from anywhere in the world,
Right.
and
Yeah,
So it's,
yeah, yeah. We're not living in nature, are we, basically? We're
so
not
here's
living
the
naturally.
so here's the thing, Karen. If we're not living in as according with nature, then what that's doing, well, it's poisoning us
Of course.
because we're eating an animal beast, by the way, and you'll see that at the show.
Mhm.
You know, so even though I've kind of felt I know the right things to do, I have my appetites. You know, I drink Pepsi. Since Bill Gates got hold of that, I'm trying to wean him off that. But the issue is we're being poisoned. Now you've got to ask yourself, is that a deliberate attack on humanity? Well, I would say yes, it is.
Well, can I just come in here, Paul?
Yeah,
Because well, a couple of things that I wanted to say, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I mean,
yeah,
hopefully I won't forget. So you just said you drink Pepsi, so we have a choice now. You know, Pepsi or Coke and all the stuff. You know what's in it. You can clean
yeah,
toilets with it, but and it's very hard because it's addictive because of the sugar content. I
absolutely.
think
Yeah,
sugar is one of the worst drugs ever, ever.
absolutely.
Because it's hidden in so many things, and we all have a sweet tooth. And but it's a deliberate thing. So you're saying, you asked me beforehand, what am I, or what are we? And I'm saying I'm a spiritual person with consciousness, and I have lessons to go through. But surely one of them is like not to be tempted by the vices, whether it is drugs or sex or alcohol or sugar. I would even put that in that list. So do we not have that opportunity to say no more sugar? I love sugar as well. I have
Yeah,
cake. That's my thing: cakes and biscuits and hot chocolate. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I've given up a lot of that stuff, especially the alcohol. My God,
yeah.
I have so much clarity since I stopped drinking about 11 years ago. But again, to be here as a human being on a lesson, then it's a choice. We have choice. That was the
And
one thing I was just going to say. And the other thing I was going to say about national debt, whether it's national or whether it's global, who do we owe this to? Who are we? Is it another planet we owe this money to? I always think, well, hang on, who we owe if we're all in debt? It's crazy. We're owing it to each other. So therefore, surely there is this pyramid, there's somebody at the top that wants to enslave us and keep us in debt, which is kind of what you're saying. But it always
yeah,
intrigues me. Who do we owe this to? Is it Planet Zod?
yeah. Let's take it one step at a time. Yeah, on the what we drink appetites. Yeah, the one thing that God gave us that he said he would never remove from us was the ability to choose. What
Absolutely.
he said was, look, I've given you a moral code, 10 Commandments for arguments. I've told you, Jesus Christ said, was asked which is the greatest commandment. He said, look, love God and then love your fellow man. And as long as you do that, you're good. And then everything else is about choice, isn't it? So
Mhm.
in this case, I know, I'll hold it up, I know that that's not good for me. But like you, I bloody love the taste. I'm addicted. So I don't. Now, what I can tell you, I've never smoked and I've never drank alcohol in since 25, 40 years. Yeah. So when you see me, you think, God, blimey, he should be the picture of health. Well, no, because it's not just that I'm eating the wrong things, Karen, or drinking the wrong things. I've also got what's going on up in the sky. There's
Mm.
also what's going on in the food. As you say,
Mhm.
if you look at photographs of people on beaches, even in the 60s,
Yeah.
I was born 1960. If you saw Blackpool Beach with 1,000 people on the beach, I promise you would not see one obese person on that photograph.
No, that's right. It's deliberate. It's deliberate
So
with the fast food, with McDonald's,
yeah,
with the
yeah. So now,
KFC.
so
Yeah.
now take that forward to now take the same photograph of 1,000 people, and you probably see 60, 70% obese.
Yeah.
So it's so was that my fault? Well, not if someone's coming
It's
behind me
called
and deliberate.
marketing. It's called marketing, Paul. It's a
Right.
television, it's advertising,
Yeah.
it's in the magazines, it's on the radio, it's everything. We know
Can't
that it's
move away
data.
from it. Now
No, but you have a choice. But you do have a choice. You can
you
say
do have a
no to
choice,
the
and
Pepsi.
yeah, I'm trying. But here's the other thing, and here's the other marketing issue. You walk into Sainsbury's, the
Yeah.
posh one, and what does it say? Healthy food on the right. Well, if the healthy food's on the right, then what's on the rest?
Yeah.
Marketing,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
it
that's
is.
the,
It's all
oh,
marketing.
and not only is the healthy food on the right, it's bloody expensive. So
Yes,
they've even made that for most people.
unobtainable.
They may be tempted to go there because they want to be healthier, and then you see, well, hold on, to eat this, which is only a little
Yeah,
block. I mean, do you remember when you used to go and get a Snicker? It was like this big and this long. You go and get a
yeah.
Snicker now, it's about this size.
It's the
So,
wagon wheels that make me laugh.
one of my favorites, yeah.
They
Well,
used to be
you
like
go and
wagon
see it.
wheels. Yeah, they're
You
like a
go and see a wagon
tricycle.
wheel. I mean, a wagon wheel was a meal when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I mean, now you'd have to eat about six of them. You know
that's
what I mean?
right. No wheels
So
on my
again,
wagon. Yeah,
all constructs to trap us.
that's right. That's
And
right.
then if you do the exact same thing as what we've just said for food, and then put that into currency, well, it's the same concept.
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
tempted us that in order for us to go and buy the wagon wheel, we've got to get credit
yeah,
because we can't offset the debt with gold or silver. I have gold and silver. I have crypto because I do see the value to that.
yeah.
But if I went into a shop, and here's the thing, I should have brought a piece of silver to show you, but I've got Britannia silver coins. Now, they're currently priced at £28 a coin. So if I went to my local shop and I said, right, I want that, I want that, I want that, and it came to £28, and I said to me, oh, there's a silver coin, what do you think they're going to say?
Oh, well, you actually asked me. They say, well, how much is that worth? Or I can't take that. I don't know. Or if they're awake, they might say, thank you very much.
Right, if they're awake, they would
Yeah,
take it because they can then keep hold of that and it's going to grow in value.
that's right.
But the
Yeah.
point is, it's been outlawed as being able to pay off debt.
Mm,
So you can't use gold or silver to
mm,
discharge it. So we know that
mm.
solution is out, gone. It's not available. And that really kicked in 1971 when Nixon brought the dollar at the time off
Yeah.
the exchange rate with gold. But what he does say, and I'll quote what he actually says, I've instructed the Secretary of State or Treasury, I can't remember now, but want to do that, to temporarily suspend the exchange for gold. Temporarily, which meant it was only for a short period.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The price of gold went up so much
Yeah.
that had he have withdrew the temporary suspension of exchange of gold, it would have cleared the national debt because price of gold shot up. Now they've
Mm.
said, well, we're not going to let that happen again. They
Yeah.
didn't. They didn't remove the temporary suspension. They've kept it going to date. And the only way that you and I can go and buy your house, go and buy your car, go and get your nice stuff, you have to go into debt. You have to get credit. Right. Now that brings me on to the second solution, which is what I want to promote next week. The solution is your birth certificate. Because when you give that away, it has a financial value. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
And if that birth certificate represents my wealth as given by the creator, 180 billionth of the wealth, whatever that deems to be, and I can assure you it's in the billions, then there must be a way that I can use that birth certificate to discharge debt. And there is. Now, the reason why I've been kind of quiet and haven't really come out with this because I'm having to prove it. I proved it with the promissory notes. I proved it with other methods that a lot of talkers on riches have come up with. But the ultimate way, not only to create personal wealth, but to balance those books and to bring down the global debt. I'm only saying national debt because we're both in the UK, but I'm talking about the global debt. It can apply the same. If we were to use the paperwork, power in the pen is mightier than the sword, with the correct documents, which I've now got access to, with the correct method, with the correct process, which I've now got, we can walk into a court and say to a judge, I'll use you as the example. So I'm coming to you now. I can go to a court of law and say, I wish to appoint Karen Dodd as my trustee of my estate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And here is my birth certificate as security for you to do with anything to discharging my debt. What do you think he's got to do?
Well, it it depends again, doesn't it? He's not going to do that if he can get away with it.
He's not, but unfortunately, they're governed by laws themselves.
Yeah.
So the law of the land says equity outperforms law.
Yeah.
So if you're in equity, and this is where many of these people who got varying solutions, the one thing that they're missing is none of them are using equity because it's not commonly understood or known. Now
Yeah.
I've got access, which is probably still going to take me a few months to get it done, because right now I'm preparing my paperwork to go into court as a class act proceeding, whereby once it's rubber stamped by the judge, having a trustee and a trust, a private trust. So what we're doing, we're moving from the public into the private. We're saying to a judge, oh, by the way, judge, instead of me fighting all these documents and going into court and fighting it, here's my mortgage. It's, again, £100,000. Do me a favor, please. I'm appointing you as fiduciary responsibility for that note. Can you authorize the payment of that from my estate? Yes. From my estate.
Yeah.
So I'm not paying it, which a lot of these other groups are saying, oh, don't pay your tax bill, don't do this, don't do that. Yeah. No, forget that.
No, I hear you, because I do speak to a lot of people that, and they say, well, we have a duty to pay council tax, to pay for the schools, the roads, the police, or whatever. But these are some people that really want to pay it, and I respect that. Other people saying, well, I won't because it's already been paid for within my estate. So,
but here's the thing, and you're absolutely spot on, and they're absolutely spot on. It's not only being paid for, but it's being double dipped.
Yes, yes.
It's like your mortgage. You create £100,000 to buy your mortgage, they charge you interest, you end up paying £300,000. And by the way, they sell it on to somebody else who does exactly the same. Who sells it on to somebody else who does exactly the same? Because that signature on that note, once you're on it, it can be traded all around the world, and is traded all around the world. My original mortgage, even though I paid it off, I can assure you 100% that original, special purpose vehicle, that is still being traded because it's never been settled.
No, that's right. It's still in the system.
Yeah, I might have paid off my loan agreement, which I have via the promissory note, but it's still being traded. So as far as the system is concerned, they can still make money. And the other thing is, going back to the birth certificate to kind of tie it all in, your birth certificate bond trades for in perpetuity. So even when you're deceased, guess what they do when you're deceased? They go to the original loan amount, and let's say, make the math simple, let's say you were given $1 million. They go to the Bank of International Settlement, and this is what happens in probate, by the way. They go to the original debt. They pay the Bank of International Settlement the $1 million. They look at all the debt that you've accrued over your lifetime. They settle all that. So now your books are balanced. But your bond still has a value.
Yeah.
What happens to that value? It continues to trade. Now, the government or the monarch cannot access that because that's in trust. And I've just given you the answer, really.
Yeah.
But what they can do, they can take the proceeds, the profit off, and say, well, hold on, they actually signed Paul Gunson and Karen Dodd over to the States. That bond is ours. And there's the problem. People say, well, that's my birthright and it's my certificate. No, it's bloody not. It's theirs. Because our parents signed us over to the state. So people,
Unwittingly. Yeah.
yeah. So people are saying, well, I demand, I'm going to cut your head off. I'm going to put you in the guillotine. And they did do that. Did they solve the debt? Not a chance. Because now we're right back to where we were then. But the issue is, the solution is in the trust. The solution is in the birth certificate. What we have to do, and this is the hardest thing, we have to take our birth certificate and we have to surrender it to a trust and say, as of now, I'm not playing your game.
Yeah.
As of now, that birth certificate, that straw man, that dead entity, I ain't that person.
On that note, Paul, we are going to have to bring this to a close because we've gone well over the hour. I'll try and keep them to 40 minutes. There's so much that we can talk about. So let's just say you're going to be coming to our Lawful Remedy show in Canterbury next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And you're going to join us on the Lawful Remedy show with Richard Vobes, not this week, but the following week.
24th,
so more about that. And I think because you're putting this into action, let's you and I have another chat once you've got further information and we can share this, because it does take people like you to go out there and do the work to set the example, and then we will follow.
Well, as I say, my idea now is I'm going to use Richard's show, the Canterbury one, to really launch this, because I'm at the point where I couldn't launch it. I actually do believe I'm about 90 days away from being able to come back on the show and say, remember what I spoke back to in October? Here's all my debt discharge. Now here's the thing, just to give you a little bit of a taste there. By doing this in the correct manner, you will get £100,000 a year paid out on a monthly basis, plus access to £2 million for the rest of your life.
Well, I'm not going to hold you to that, but I look forward to it. So on that note, Paul, I'm going to have to wind up or close up or whatever we say. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, those people watching it, I'd say if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, because I always look at them and I'll pass them, and Paul will probably look at them so we can answer those questions. And if you like what you've seen, like it, subscribe to the channel to get more of the information. And Paul, I will see you very shortly on the show with Richard. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. All right. God bless.
And you, God bless.